Okay, Alexander, we let's just keep recording. We need to talk about a phone call between US President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. And we did a lot of videos on MBS and the oil price, and I'm sure this call was very much focused on the oil price. I'm sure they talked about Corona and everything that's going on, the economic collapse that everyone all around the world is feeling. But I'm sure that this call focused the majority of the time on oil. And in one of the videos, I said, wouldn't it be great if Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump got together and just squeezed MBS like the annoying pimple that he is? Alexander.
That is exactly what I think is coming. I mean, what is? Can I just say a few things? I mean, you have to follow very closely what's happening in the oil market and with Trump and Putin and MBS, because it's a bizarre triangle. But I mean, MBS is one of these people who has a genius for taking a bad situation and making it multiples worse. And he has a very strange understanding of reality. Now, going back to what happened in February at this now infamous meeting in Vienna of OPEC and OPEC Plus, when the Russians didn't agree to his demand, his ultimatum, as he called it, for a 1.5 million barrel production cut. Well, he asked them to cut by 300,000. But he was going to force OPEC to cut by 1.5 million. Anyway, the Russians said no, and what they said to him, and we know this because lots of Russian officials have come along and said, look, we're not in principle necessarily opposed to cutting production cuts. Some of us aren't happy with it. Rosneft isn't happy with it, but overall, we're not saying no. What we are saying is we now have this problem with Corona starting up. We don't know where this is going. It could very well be that demand is going to collapse anyway. For us to agree a production cut now, before we know what the situation is going to be in a few weeks' time, may not achieve anything much, especially as the only people who will benefit will be the shale producers in the US. So MBS didn't listen to any of that. He did a complete 180-degree turn. He said, if you won't cut production, then I'm going to increase production by 4 million barrels a day. He didn't ask himself how, if demand is collapsing, which it is, how he's going to sell this oil. And that is what is now happening. He's on the brink, it seems, of having more oil than he can store, because storage space in Saudi Arabia is now almost exhausted, and that he can sell. He's even apparently been hiring oil tankers to put his oil offshore, because storage spaces within Saudi itself have run out. So he's got all these oil tankers floating around the Gulf, piling up with oil, which he's got to put somewhere, and it seems even that space is now running out. So he's got himself into an extraordinary and bizarre position. Now, there's been some very strange articles appearing. One which attracted a lot of attention, which was on oilprice.com, which is, I should say, one of the absolutely crucial websites if you want to understand what's going on in the oil market. Anyway, that said, that with all the oil that MBS is pumping out, before very long, he's going to have to start paying people to buy his oil. Actually, it's been explained to me, even that isn't practical, because everybody in a situation of collapsing demand has more oil than they can use. So why would they take oil from MBS, even if he paid them, even if he was offering it for free, bearing in mind that it costs them to store it? So people are saying no. Now, he only has one choice in this situation, it seems to me, at some point over the next couple of days or weeks, he's going to have to cut production. It's the only thing he can do. Now, at the same time, what he's managed to do is the worst possible thing that the Saudis would want, which is that the Saudis have up to now always been able to play a game of having the Americans on the one hand and the Russians on the other, and Saudi Arabia's in the middle, and it plays the two off against each other because it's the only one that on oil issues can talk to the US and it can talk to the Russians. Now, the Russians and the US are talking to each other directly. And there's been rumors of previous conversations between Putin and Trump. This one definitely happened. The Kremlin has provided a readout, and exactly what you said is true. There's no question about it. The major topic was oil. That's what they were talking about. That's what Putin and Trump was talking about. Now, Putin has big financial reserves. He can keep going for quite a while, even with the corona crisis. He's closed down the financial markets in Russia, so he doesn't have to bail out banks, which are state-owned in Russia anyway. He can keep going for quite a long time with all of this, but he doesn't want to go there. It could keep going indefinitely. Donald Trump has a massive crisis in the US oil industry. He will want to see some kind of stabilization in the oil market. Putin and Trump have the basis of an understanding on this issue. Notice that for the first time, because of the corona crisis, the media is not frothing about the fact that Putin and Trump spoke to each other. I predict that we will get exactly the scenario that you set out just a few days ago, which is that Putin and Trump will deliver an ultimatum to MbS. They will say, cut production. And they will do it at precisely the time when MbS is obliged to cut production, because, as I said, he has more oil than he can sell or store. So they will impose production cuts on MbS, and they will do it in a way that makes absolutely sure that he's not going to be able to come back a few months' time when the economies start reopening and swamp the world with oil all over again. So he has brought the Russians and the Americans together into a situation where the Russians and the Americans are talking about oil, and that where they're positioning themselves against him. It's classic example of how if you try to play off the two opposites, but you mishandle your game, you will end up uniting them against you.
Okay, so what's that going to mean when they get to that point and they tell MbS to just cut it out, just stop with your stupidity?
Yeah.
What's that going to mean for Saudi Arabia and MbS? What's that going to mean for Trump and the U.S. shale market?
Yeah.
And what's that going to mean for Putin and the Russian oil market?
Well, let's start with the Russians. What the Russians will want, and I think they made this quite clear. There was an interview with a Russian official, an influential Russian official called Kirill Dmitriev, who is the head of Russia's investment fund. He said that, what he basically said, you had to unpack it, but what he basically said was that the Russians will play ball, they will cut production, but they do expect the US to cut production also. And they don't want the US coming along and exploiting, as it has been doing, Russian production cuts by entering markets which the Russians would in that case have been basically surrendering. So they will want some kind of deal with the US. I think there will be resistance in the US, but I think the US will agree, because I think Donald Trump does want to preserve the shale industry. He does see the shale industry and the US oil industry as a strategic asset. The US has worked extremely hard over the last 10 years to achieve a measure of oil dependency and energy dependency. It's given the US great freedom of action diplomatically and politically, and I don't think they will want to surrender that. So I think they will agree to some kind of understanding with the Russians on oil, which is going to be a big change for the US. There may be some people, I predict the Lindsey Grahams will not be pleased, but I suspect that in the end they will go along with it. So there will be this agreement. Now, so the US will get something from it. The Russians will get something from it. I think the Saudis will feel utterly humiliated, because this whole thing began on the part of MbS as a game to punish the Russians, to smash the shale industry, and to win market share for Saudi Arabia. And it will have achieved none of those objectives. It will have left a massive hole in the Saudi budget, which I don't expect is going to be repaired. And it will have left the Saudis, being dictated to by the US and the Russians. They will be humiliated, and it's difficult to see MbS coming out well from this.
All right. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much, guys. If you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Click on that notifications bell, smash that like, and make sure you are still subscribed to the Duran channel, because YouTube unsubscribes our viewers all the time. Very frustrating, but they do it. Also, donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. Your donation really helps this channel out a lot. And look for us on iTunes and SoundCloud for an audio copy of this video as well. And of course, go to the Duran shop, pick up some merchandise, magic mugs, and really, really nice polo shirts like the one Alexander is wearing.
Indeed, absolutely so. Now, can I just talk about the mugs first? These are beautiful and amazing magic mugs. This one has the coat of arms of the Russian Federation on it. This is the Russian double-headed eagle. It's like the double-headed eagle you see on Putin's mugs. So Putin is at the moment in his residence at Novo-Ogaryovo, which is just outside Moscow, where he's got massive TV and telephone and communication facilities. And I am sure that when he was speaking to Trump, he had his tea mug next to him with the same logo as this one, but it is not as good as our mugs. I can say that without any hesitation at all, because through my life, ever since I was a student, even ever since I was at school, in fact, I have been a tea and coffee fiend, and I drink I can't survive without, multiple cups of coffee, not just every day, but almost every hour. And so I am the absolute world expert on mugs, and these are the best. You will not get better ones anywhere than these. The Kremlin, the White House, Zhongnanhai, MbS's palace, the Elysee, Downing Street, Buckingham Palace, they have less good mugs than these ones. I can say that definitely. In fact, I know a little bit about the ones in Downing Street, and they're frankly rubbish. They don't come close. So we have the best mugs you can get anywhere. They're absolutely fantastic. They keep your tea and coffee hot, your beer and your champagne, if you prefer, cold. They don't chip or flake or break. They are beautiful to handle, and they are simply stunning mugs. So we don't just have the best mugs, we also have, I think, the best polo shirts. Again, I've worn lots of polo shirts in my time, but these are the best. If you want something that's really elegant and smart casual, you couldn't do better than get these polo shirts. 100% cotton, beautifully made, phenomenally comfortable, marvelously stitched together. These have, all of them, the double-headed eagle of the Duran embroidered there in gold, and they are the most amazing polo shirts you can find. We don't just have polo shirts also, we also have all kinds of other shirts. We have long sleeve t-shirts, short sleeve t-shirts, v-neck shirts, all of them immensely comfortable, all of them 100% cotton, all of the highest quality, all, by the way, incredibly hard wearing. I've had my mugs and my shirts for over a year, and they're perfect. So that tells you how good they are. And we also have other things. We have hats and hoodies and stickers. We have the best ebooks on subjects like Russiagate, Ukrainegate, Epstein, Brexit. We have to say that we've had enormous help with our ebooks from Paul, who Alex will tell you about, who is the best transcriber you can find, who does this kind of work brilliantly. If you want to find somebody to do that kind of work for you, well, you can find all the details. Alex will explain at the end of this program. So, as Alex rightly says, we have all kinds of problems with our friends at YouTube who make life very difficult for us sometimes, but you can come to the Duran, you can support us by getting our great things in our shop, and at the same time, you can be the owner of these great things. So don't hold back, come to our shop, be the owner of these great things, support the Duran, and Alex will tell you how.
Go to the Duran shop. You will find a link in the description box down below. And for Paul's services for transcribing audio and video, he does a great job. You'll find the link to his services as well. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Till next time, everybody, take care.